So joining me now is CBS News correspondent Mark Strassmann, who's in Beauregard, Alabama, and Omar Villafranca, who is in Smith Station, Alabama. But Mark, we're going to start with you. I see the vehicle behind you on its side, perched up against a house, and another vehicle completely covered. Just how severe is the damage where you are?
Well, we're getting a really good sense of it now that we have light, just how catastrophic this event has been. The tornado that came through here about a half-mile wide, and you can see, dramatically proof of how powerful it was. And you can also see beyond this house all the tree tops that have been sheared off. This area was clearly right smack in the middle of the zone that the tornado came barreling through and chewed up everything that it could. You can also see this was a double whammy from a vehicle standpoint here. That white looks like maybe a Bronco that is underneath that toppled tree there. These are folks who have a lot of cleaning up to do. And clearly some rebuilding to do. The hope, of course, is that nobody was killed here, because there were folks who were killed in this neighborhood. The storm that took both property and lives. And this has really been devastating for these folks.
Yeah, when we spoke to you, this actually looks better than the location where you were when we spoke to you earlier, which was just sort of the piles of rubble. But in terms of the rescue efforts, what can you tell us about what's going on and the sort of resources that they've deployed?
Well, in fact, they were just going through this house just a second ago. There are about 200 people involved in the search and rescue. They were trying to do it last night. The terrain was too treacherous in the dark, so they waited again until daybreak to relaunch the search and rescue. I mean, look, they don't know what they're really expecting to find. There are people missing, the sheriff says, in the double digits. I don't know whether that means 11 or whether that means 99, but clearly there are some people unaccounted for. But the hope, of course, is that they're not going to find any more victims, any more bodies. But they can't be sure until they go through house by house and pile of rubble by pile of rubble. And that's going to be the focus of today, is getting in there, pulling back all the debris, making sure that there's nobody there, and if there is, hoping that they find them alive.
And I can imagine, people probably want to go back to their homes and see what's left, but I presume there's no electricity, no running water, no a lot of things, even if your home's sort of in one piece. So what's next for those who have been impacted by these tornadoes, or at least we know one tornado for sure?
Yeah, I mean, communities like this are going to be flat on their back for a while. I mean, this is a significant rebuild here. I mean, everywhere I look, I mean, there's just devastation. And even if these are families, say in this house, that have plans to rebuild, I can just tell you from past history, then there's a mad scramble to fight over, the same contractors, the same plumber, the same electrician, the same whatever you need to get back up on your feet. And those are the lucky folks, because the real issue are the people, of course, who've lost someone. And those people have a different kind of rebuild in their lives, and that's going to be much more traumatic.
Yeah, that is so true. Mark, thank you so much. We're going to pivot over to Smith Station, Alabama, where Omar Villafranca is. Omar, I'm not sure how far it is from where you are, from where Mark is, but what's the damage like where you are now?
Kind of like what Mark said there, when he's talking about piles of rubble, they are all over the place. Let me give you a little quick walk of what we're seeing here. This is a 5-story pine tree that was just basically pushed over like it was a toy and snapped. This is part of a house that's maybe about 15 yards away. I'm going to keep walking over here. This is the house that basically had part of it sheared off. There's other trees, these tall pine trees that are in Alabama and in Georgia. It just came tumbling through. This is the Serta family who lives in this house, and we actually just talked to them a little while ago. Everybody is fine, everybody's alive, but we went inside their house. It is a miracle they're alive, because it was basically, with the trees being so tall and the storm so powerful, it was like harpoons were thrown at that home. Basically, they have 8 to 10 foot pieces of tree that have stuck through the home. And in the bathroom, where a lot of people go to the tub and maybe put something over their head, a tree had smashed through there. I actually talked to Mrs. Serta. She told me that at one point when the storm came through, she was in the closet in the master bedroom, and there's a little part for the attic that lifts up. Her roof was gone, and it started sucking her up into that area. Good news, they're saying, everybody lived, but it is going to be a very long rebuilding process for people here in Smith Station.
Wow, they must be counting their blessings in that house, even though it looks like it sustained a ton of damage, and it's going to be sort of a slow rebuild for them. But what about the overall recovery efforts in that town?
Well, similar to where Mark is, there's going to be some search and rescue. People are going to still going through these massive piles of debris that is just, I mean, trees were basically just jammed together, mushed together, and thrown to the ground. There's pieces of houses mixed up in these, so they're going through to make sure everybody is okay. There was no fatalities here as of right now, but they're hoping that number stays down. They're going to have to continue with that. We have seen plenty of work crews in the area. They've cleared roads. We can see some trees have been cut, so some chainsaw gangs have come through earlier. But we're starting to see some of the power crews come up. I talked to one woman for just up the road. Her house is okay, very minor damage. They lost power overnight. It dipped into the 30s. That's why I'm wearing these gloves right now. It's cold, so people who did stay home, they did not have any heat. They're working to get these power lines back up and have power running here to people so at least they can get some sort of normalcy back in this area that was hit very hard here in Lee County.
Just curious, Omar, do you know how much warning people had? I know, often they don't have a lot of time to find a safe place to ride it out.
I mean, it's worth, as I walk over here, just to kind of show you the perspective of this. I mean, 5-story tree just toppled over, and there's one over there, there's one over there, there's one over there. As far as warning, Mrs. Serta told me they basically had a few minutes to run and hide, but it wasn't a lot. Now, the National Weather Service did have this area under a tornado watch for a while, and then that tornado warning came, and when it's a warning, that's when, of course, they tell you to take the precautions. So the National Weather Service was obviously keeping a very close eye on this area, and on social media, people were paying attention. But if you're not paying attention to either a weather radio or to social media, then you might not have been aware. I mean, mind you, it was just a March day. People probably woke up, went to church, and for 23 people, that might have been the last thing they did with the community.
Yeah, in the very beginning of tornado season. Hopefully, this is not a harbinger of things to come. Omar, you are in Smith's Station. Thank you so much.